You're lying in bed at 2 in the morning, chest tight, replaying every conversation from the day. But here's what's strange. You're not replaying your words. You're replaying theirs, their anger, their disappointment, the tension in their voice that you somehow failed to dissolve, the need they had that you didn't anticipate. And somewhere in that darkness, a voice whispers, when did their feelings become more real than yours? There's a concept in human psychology that Carl Jung spent his lifetime exploring. He noticed that certain people develop what he called a weak ego boundary. Not because they're weak, but because somewhere early in life, they learned that survival meant feeling everything around them. You learned to read a room before you could read words. You learned that your safety depended on managing other people's emotions. You became what we now call a Carl Jung empath, someone whose psyche developed not for self-protection, but for sensing danger in the emotional atmosphere. If you're a woman, you've been carrying the invisible labor of keeping the peace, smoothing over conflicts at work, absorbing your partner's stress, making sure everyone at the family gathering feels comfortable while your own discomfort goes unnoticed. If you're a man, you've been taught that this sensitivity is something to hide something shameful. So you carry everyone's burdens in silence, your own pain locked so deep inside that even you can't find it anymore. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Jung wrote that, and he understood something crucial. What works as a survival strategy in childhood becomes a prison in adulthood. Here's what makes this generation of empaths different. You're not just carrying the emotional weight of the people in your immediate life. You're carrying the weight of a world that broadcasts its suffering 24 hours a day. Every notification is someone's crisis. Every scroll reveals another tragedy. The collective pain of humanity flows through your phone and into your nervous system, and you don't even realize you're absorbing it. You're living in an age where emotional labor has become an expectation, a performance, a requirement for belonging. The therapy speak culture means everyone knows how to articulate their needs, but somehow only you are expected to meet them. You've become the designated emotional processor for your entire social ecosystem. And the exhaustion you feel isn't something that happened overnight. It's been building for years. Decades, maybe. Every time you said yes when you meant no. Every time you made yourself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. Every time you carried their anxiety, their rage, their grief, because they couldn't or wouldn't carry it themselves. These weren't isolated incidents. They were slow erosion, the gradual disappearance of a self you can barely remember. When an empath stops caring, the world calls it a breakdown. But what if it's actually a breakthrough? What if the part of you that's shutting down isn't your capacity to love, but your willingness to participate in your own destruction? You're not weak. You never were. You're simply too awakened now to tolerate any more self-betrayal. Your soul has reached its threshold, and it's doing what any intelligent system does when it's been depleted beyond capacity. It's protecting you the only way it knows how, by refusing to continue. This exhaustion you feel, this inability to care the way you used to, it's not a failure. It's your psyche's last stand. It's the part of you that still wants to survive, finally speaking loud enough to be heard. Before we go deeper into this transformation, if this is resonating with something you felt but couldn't name, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Your support helps this message reach other empaths who need to understand they're not broken, they're awakening. Let's talk about something nobody explained to you. From the moment you developed that heightened sensitivity, people around you began making unconscious assumptions about what you owed them. They assigned you roles without asking permission. Listener, soother, absorber. The person who processes emotions for people too scared to feel their own. Jung talked about the persona, the mask we wear to meet the world's expectations. But for the Carl Jung empath, the persona isn't just a mask. It becomes a prison. You weren't allowed to develop a self separate from your function. Your worth became tied to your usefulness. Your identity became organized around being needed. Think about your childhood, maybe you had a parent whose moods were unpredictable and you learned to scan their face for signs of the coming storm. Maybe you grew up in a household where conflict was dangerous and you became the peacekeeper, the translator, the one who could feel the tension and dissolve it before it exploded. Maybe you were simply the sensitive one, and that sensitivity was treated as both a gift and a burden, something others could use, but also something you should learn to hide. Nobody sat you down and said, from now on, you're responsible for managing everyone's emotional states. Nobody asked if you wanted that job. It was assigned through repetition, through praise when you succeeded, through withdrawal when you failed. You learned that love was conditional on your ability to understand, to forgive, to accommodate. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Jung understood that most humans live in carefully constructed denial. They push away the parts of themselves they find unacceptable, their anger, their selfishness, their pain. And when they can't hold those rejected parts anymore, they look for someone who will. That someone is you. They don't do this consciously. They're not sitting around thinking about how to exploit your empathy. It's far more subtle than that. They simply feel lighter around you. Their anxiety decreases when you're present. Their problems seem more manageable after talking to you. They walk away feeling better, and they never stop to wonder where all that heaviness went. It went into you. This is what therapists call projection, but let's use simpler language. Imagine that every person you know has a bag of emotional garbage they don't want to carry. Shame, fear, rage, grief. When they're around most people, they have to keep carrying that bag themselves. But when they're around you, they can set it down. They can open it up and show you what's inside. And somehow, without either of you quite realizing it, you pick up that bag and carry it for them. This is the invisible contract. They bring you their unprocessed emotions, and you process them. They bring you their pain, and you transform it into something bearable. They bring you their chaos, and you organize it into meaning. You've been doing this so long that you think it's love. You think it's connection. You think it's what relationships are supposed to be. But here's what happens when you stop. When you finally reach your limit and you can't carry one more bag, can't absorb one more wave of someone else's anxiety, can't translate one more person's emotional experience, because you're too exhausted to feel your own, the contract collapses. And their panic is immediate. Suddenly they're angry. You've changed, they say. You're not the person they knew. You've become selfish, cold, distant. What they're really saying is, you've stopped performing the function I needed you to perform. You've stopped being my emotional container, and now I have to face what I've been avoiding. Their panic isn't about losing you. It's about losing what you provided. And that's the most painful recognition of all, realizing that what you thought was love was actually just utility. They didn't love you. They loved what you did for them. This is why the transformation feels so devastating. You're not just losing relationships. You're losing the entire framework that defined your worth. If you're not the helper, the fixer, the understanding one, then who are you? If your value doesn't come from absorbing other people's pain, where does it come from? These questions crack you open. And that cracking, as painful as it is the beginning of something real. Let's go deeper into the mechanism. Why do you absorb emotions that don't belong to you? Why can't you tell the difference between your anxiety and there's your sadness, and there's your exhaustion and theirs? The answer lies partly in neuroscience and partly in personal development. Your brain has something called mirror neuron cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else perform that action. For most people, these neurons help with basic empathy and social learning. But for you, they're on overdrive. When someone near you feels anxious, your mirror neurons fire as if you're the one feeling anxious. When they're angry, your body responds as if the anger is yours. Your nervous system doesn't just register their emotional state, it mimics it, embodies it, experiences it as real. This isn't imagination. This is your physiology literally processing their stress hormones. Now add to that your developmental history. You learned early that reading emotions kept you safe. Your survival depended on it. So your brain built stronger and stronger pathways for emotional attunement. Every time you correctly identified a mood shift and adjusted your behavior to maintain safety, those pathways got reinforced. You became hypervigilant to emotional data. But here's the cost: you never developed strong boundaries between self and other. In psychology, we call this enmeshment. Your sense of where you end and another person begins got blurred. You can feel what they feel so intensely that you lose track of what you feel. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Jung wrote that, and it points to the core problem. You've been looking outward for so long, scanning everyone else's emotional landscape, that you've lost the ability to look inward. You don't know what your own heart contains anymore because you're too busy carrying everyone else's. This is what turns empathy from a gift into a burden. Healthy empathy says, I can feel what you're feeling, and I understand. I can hold space for your experience without making it mine. But what you're doing is something else entirely. You're not just feeling with them, you're feeling for them. You're taking their emotions into your body and metabolizing them as if they're yours. Think of it this way. Imagine your friend is drowning and you jump in to save them. That's empathy in action. But what you've been doing is diving underwater and breathing in their water so they can breathe. You're drowning so they don't have to. That's not empathy. That's self-erasure. Jung talked about the concept of the vessel. In alchemy, the vessel is what holds the material being transformed. The vessel has to be strong enough to contain the heat, the pressure, the chaos of transformation. But your vessel has no bottom. Everything poured into you just drains right through. You've become a conduit, a channel, a passageway for other people's pain. Nothing stays contained. Nothing gets transformed. It all just flows through you endlessly. And here's what most people don't understand. You're not just carrying the emotions of the people in your life. You're carrying the unconscious material they refuse to face. Their shadow. The parts of themselves they've rejected and denied. The rage they can't admit. The shame they won't acknowledge. The grief they're too afraid to feel. When they're near you, those rejected parts find a home. You feel their anger for them. You carry their shame for them. You metabolize the emotions they've exiled from their own awareness. This is what Jung meant when he talked about possession. You're being possessed by the unconscious content of others. Your body is keeping the score of all this emotional labor. You can't sleep because your nervous system is processing the uploads from 10 different people. You have mysterious physical symptoms because trauma and emotion you've absorbed have nowhere else to go. Your exhaustion isn't just mental, it's cellular. Your entire organism is screaming for relief. This is why shadow work for empaths is so critical. You have to learn to distinguish what's yours from what's theirs. You have to rebuild the boundaries that never fully formed. You have to become a sealed vessel instead of a leaking one, something that can hold and transform rather than just absorb and carry. There comes a moment when something inside you just stops. It's not dramatic. It's not a decision you make consciously. One day you wake up and the capacity to care in the old way simply isn't there anymore. This is burnout, but not the kind people usually talk about. This is deeper. There are 3 levels to it. First, there's emotional burnout. The well is dry. you have nothing left to give. When someone comes to you with their problem, instead of that familiar pull to fix it, to soothe them, to absorb their distress, you feel nothing. Just a flat, empty space where your responsiveness used to live. Second, there's relational burnout. You look at the people in your life and realize every relationship follows the same script. You give, they take. You accommodate, they demand. You understand, they expect. The pattern is so clear now that you can't unsee it. And the thought of continuing to play your role in that pattern makes you feel physically ill. Third, there's spiritual burnout. This is the deepest level. You start questioning if this is all life is, endless service to others while you disappear more and more. You wonder if there's a version of existence where you matter too, where your needs aren't always secondary, where your pain gets witnessed instead of buried. The meaning you once derived from helping others has evaporated, and there's just emptiness in its place. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Jung understood that psychological awakening requires us to face things we've been avoiding. For you, what you've been avoiding is the truth of your own abandonment. You've been abandoning yourself for years, and your psyche has finally reached its limit. The breaking point isn't one event. It's the accumulation of 10,000 small betrayals of self. Every time you said you were fine when you weren't. Every time you prioritized someone else's comfort over your own truth. Every time you forgave someone who never apologized. Every time you made excuses for behavior you wouldn't tolerate from anyone else. These moments stacked up one on top of another until the weight became unbearable. And then something cracks. Not loudly, quietly, like ice giving way under pressure. The old structure of your psyche, built on accommodation and self-sacrifice, simply can't hold anymore. Your dreams change during this time. You might dream of floods of dams breaking, of structures collapsing. You might dream of animals attacking you in places that should be sacred. You might dream of running, but your feet won't move, or screaming, but no sound comes out. These aren't random images. They're messages from your unconscious telling you that the old psychological structure is failing and something new is trying to emerge. When you stop caring, the people around you interpret it as coldness. They think you've become hard, uncaring, maybe even cruel. But what's actually happening is that your psyche is engaging its last defense mechanism. It's protecting you the only way it can, by shutting down the channels through which you've been hemorrhaging energy. This is what Jung called the nigredo in alchemical terms. The blackening, the decomposition of old forms. Before anything new can be built, the old structure has to die. And that death feels like depression, like shutdown, like a loss of self. Because it is. The false self, the one built entirely on meeting others' needs, is dying. And that death is necessary. It's not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough in disguise. Your soul is finally fighting back against the betrayal you've been enacting against it. The silence, the withdrawal, the inability to care in the old compulsive way. These aren't symptoms of damage. They're symptoms of healing beginning. When you stop performing emotional labor, something fascinating happens. The people who benefited from that labor suddenly panic. And their panic reveals everything you need to know about the relationship. Here's what they're experiencing for the first time. They have to carry their own emotional weight. The anxiety you were absorbing, it's back in their body. The anger you were metabolizing, they have to feel it now. The pain you were transforming, it's sitting in their chest, raw and unprocessed. You've been functioning as a mirror, but a very particular kind of mirror. Not the kind that shows people how they look. The kind that shows them what they're avoiding. As long as you were absorbing their shadow material, they didn't have to face it. But now that you've stopped, all that rejected content comes flooding back. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Jung wrote that, but he also understood that some people don't want transformation. They want comfort. They want someone to take away the discomfort of growth, to protect them from the confrontation with their own souls. That someone has been you. Now look at how they respond when you pull away. This response tells you what the relationship was actually built on. If someone has an anxious attachment style, they'll escalate. They'll demand to know what's wrong. They'll accuse you of abandoning them. They'll create drama to pull you back into the old role. Why aren't you fixing me anymore, is what they're really asking. If someone has narcissistic patterns, they'll rage. They'll tell you you've changed for the worse. They'll attack your character. They'll try to make you feel guilty for no longer being their emotional supply source. How dare you stop feeding me, is what's underneath their anger. If someone is genuinely dependent, they'll collapse. They'll panic about how they'll function without you. They'll tell you they need you. But what they mean is, I need you to continue being my external emotional regulation system because I never developed my own. The relationship's built on genuine mutual care. Those people show up differently. They ask what you need. They express concern for your well-being. They give you space. They don't take your withdrawal personally because they understand it's not about them. These people were relating to you as a whole person, not as a function. The difference becomes crystal clear. And it's devastating to realize how many people in your life fall into the first category. How many relationships were built on imbalance. How many connections were actually just transactions disguised as intimacy. The accusations come fast when you stop playing your old role. You're selfish now. You've changed. What about everything I did for you? Let's be honest about that last one. What they did for you was usually minimal compared to what you did for them. And when they bring it up, they're not trying to restore balance. They're trying to reinstall the old contract. This is why shadow work for empaths includes learning to tolerate other people's discomfort without rushing in to fix it. Their panic is not your emergency. Their inability to regulate their emotions is not your responsibility to solve. Their discomfort with who you're becoming is not a reason to revert to who you were. You're watching the entire system collapse. Every relationship based on you over-functioning while they under-functioned. Every dynamic where you carried the emotional weight for both people. Every connection that required you to stay small so they could feel big. All of it crumbling because you've removed the one thing holding it together, your self-abandonment. And here's what you're learning. Their resistance to your healing is a confession. They're confessing that they needed you broken in a very specific way. They needed your boundaries weak so they could cross them. They needed your self-worth low so you wouldn't demand reciprocity. They needed you focused on them so you wouldn't notice your own neglect. This recognition is painful, but it's also liberating. Because now you see clearly. Now you understand what was real and what was performance. And that clarity, as sharp as it is the foundation of your new life. Let's talk about the emotion you've been taught to fear more than any other anger. As an empath, you learned early that anger makes you bad, unlovable, dangerous, so you buried it. You suppressed it. You turned it inward where it became depression, anxiety, self-blame. But here's what nobody told you: anger is information. It's your psyche's way of saying something here violates my integrity. When you feel angry, it means a boundary has been crossed. Your anger isn't the problem. The problem is that you've been trained to silence it. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Jung spent his career helping people integrate their shadow, the rejected parts of the self. For you, anger is a huge piece of that shadow. You've split yourself into the good empath who understands everything and the bad person who feels rage. But that split is killing you. Integration means bringing your anger back into consciousness, not to act it out in destructive ways, but to have a relationship with it, to let it inform you, to use it as the boundary-setting force it was meant to be. Think about healthy anger. It's the mother bear protecting her cubs. It's the activist fighting injustice. It's the person saying, no, this is not acceptable. Anger in its pure form is protective, not destructive. It's the energy that defends what's sacred. And what's sacred is you, your well-being, your integrity, your right to exist without constant self-sacrifice. But you were taught that empathy means never getting angry, that understanding someone means accepting everything they do, that boundaries are mean that saying no is selfish, that protecting yourself is somehow a betrayal of love. These teachings were lies designed to keep you available for exploitation. The truth is, this empathy without boundaries is self-erasure. If you can understand everyone and forgive everything and accommodate all behavior, then where do you exist in that equation? You don't. You've disappeared. You've become a ghost in your own life, a function without a self. When you stop caring in the old way, your anger starts to surface. And it might scare you. You might feel it rising in your chest, hot and unfamiliar. You might hear your own thoughts taking a harder edge. You might catch yourself thinking things you've never allowed yourself to think. I don't care what you need right now. Figure it out yourself. I'm done explaining this. I don't owe you anything. These thoughts feel foreign because you've been performing sweetness for so long. But they're not foreign. They're yours. They've been waiting underneath your accommodating persona, gaining pressure, getting ready to be acknowledged. This is shadow work for empaths in action. You're not becoming a bad person. You're becoming a whole person. And whole people contain multitudes. They're soft and fierce, compassionate and boundaried, understanding and unwilling to tolerate mistreatment. The anger you're feeling isn't wrong. It's appropriate. It's your psyche's healthy response to years of self-betrayal. Let it speak. Listen to what it's telling you. Notice who and what triggers it. That anger is mapping your boundaries, showing you where lines need to be drawn. But here's the key: integration doesn't mean unleashing rage on everyone who ever hurt you. It means developing a conscious relationship with your anger. It means letting it inform your decisions without letting it control your actions. It means using its energy to establish boundaries, to protect yourself, to walk away from what diminishes you. The warrior archetype emerges during this phase. Not the warrior who fights others, but the warrior who defends the sacred self. This warrior doesn't attack. They simply hold the line. They say this far and no further. They refuse to abandon themselves anymore, no matter who asks them to. This is the power that's been locked inside you all along. Your anger isn't your enemy. It's been trying to save you. And now that you're finally listening, you're starting to understand something profound. You can be deeply empathic and still have absolute boundaries. You can understand someone completely and still refuse to carry their consequences. You can feel their pain and still choose not to absorb it. This paradox, this ability to hold softness and strength simultaneously, is what makes the integrated empath truly powerful. You're no longer split. You're no longer performing goodness to hide your rage. You're simply whole, containing all of it, wielding all of it with consciousness. Something alchemical happens when you start integrating your shadow. You transform from an open sponge into what Jung called the sealed vessel. The container strong enough to hold its own transformation without leaking energy in every direction. For years you've been porous. Every emotion around you flowed right through you. Every need in your vicinity became your responsibility. Every person's discomfort triggered your fixing mechanism. You had no seal, no boundary, no way to contain your own energy. You were perpetually leaking, hemorrhaging, depleting. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Jung understood that becoming yourself requires separation. Not isolation, but differentiation. The ability to know where you end and another person begins. The capacity to feel your own feelings without immediately getting flooded by everyone else's. This is the shift from persona to self. The persona is the mask, the role, the accommodating empath who exists to serve others. The self is the totality of who you are, all the rejected parts and accepted parts, the light and the shadow integrated into wholeness. Building the sealed vessel isn't about becoming cold or closed off. It's about developing the kind of boundaries that are flexible but firm. Boundaries that let in what nourishes you and keep out what harms you. Think of them as filters, not walls. Here's where personal development meets practical application. You have to learn to distinguish your emotions from other people's emotions. This sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest skills you'll develop. Start by asking yourself throughout the day, whose feeling is this? Did I wake up anxious? Or did I absorb my partner's anxiety over breakfast? Is this my anger? Or am I carrying rage that belongs to my coworker? Pay attention to somatic cues. Where in your body do you feel emotions that are actually yours? Where do you feel emotions you've absorbed? For many empaths, absorbed emotions feel different, like they're sitting on top of your own emotional landscape, rather than rising from within it. Practice the pause. When someone comes to you with a problem, before you automatically engage your fixing mechanism, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is this mine to carry? Am I being asked for help, or am I being used as a dumping ground? Do I have the capacity to help, or will this deplete me? Give yourself permission to not engage. This is revolutionary for empaths. You don't have to respond to every emotional bid. You don't have to solve every problem presented to you. You don't have to make everyone feel better. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is nothing. The vessel has to be strong enough to hold heat without cracking. You're learning to contain your own emotional experience, to sit with your feelings without immediately needing to discharge them or transform them. You're learning to tolerate intensity, both your own and others, without becoming it. This containment is where transformation happens. When you can hold paradox, hold complexity, hold difficult emotions without fragmenting, you become alchemically powerful. You're not absorbing anymore. You're witnessing. And witnessing is a very different energy than fixing. People notice this shift in you. They can't manipulate you the way they used to. The guilt trips don't work anymore. The obligation doesn't hook you. The fear of their anger doesn't control your choices. You've become, in their words, difficult. In your words, you've become sovereign. Sovereignty means self-governing. You decide what comes in and what stays out. You choose where your energy goes. You determine who gets access to your emotional labor and under what conditions. This isn't selfishness. This is basic self-respect, something you've been trained to think is wrong. The closed vessel doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop caring for them. You can witness someone's pain without taking it into your body. You can feel compassion without feeling compelled. You can offer support without offering yourself as a sacrifice. This is the new power emerging. The power of containment. The power of discernment. The power of conscious choice. You're no longer reactive, automatically responding to every emotional stimulus in your environment. You're grounded in your own center, responding from that center rather than from fear or obligation. There's a stage in human psychology where you stop seeking validation from external sources and start generating it from within. This is sovereignty, and it's what happens when an empath completes their individuation process. Jung spent his life mapping this journey from unconsciousness to consciousness, from fragmentation to wholeness. For empaths, this journey is particularly intense because you've spent so long defining yourself through your relationships, through your usefulness, through your ability to be what others need. But sovereignty asks a different question: who are you when nobody needs anything from you? Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling. This balance, this integration of all your psychological functions is what creates the sovereign empath. You're no longer dominated by feeling alone. You've developed your thinking, your intuition, your sensation. You've become multidimensional. The sovereign empath doesn't withdraw from the world. That's a common misconception. They engage with the world consciously, selectively, strategically. They choose their connections based on resonance, not obligation. They invest their energy where it's valued, not where it's exploited. They show up fully in relationships that are reciprocal and release relationships that require self-abandonment. This selectivity is what makes you powerful. Your empathy is no longer a wound that anyone can access. It's a gift that you offer intentionally. You can turn it on for people who've earned it and turn it off for people who would abuse it. This isn't manipulation. This is healthy functioning. Think about what you can do now that you couldn't do before. You can feel someone's pain and choose not to absorb it. You can understand someone's perspective and still disagree with it. You can recognize someone's need and decline to meet it. You can witness someone's self-destructive pattern and refuse to save them from themselves. These capacities might sound cold to people who've never done their own personal development work, but they're actually sophisticated. They require psychological maturity. They demonstrate that you've moved from unconscious enmeshment to conscious relating. The sovereign empath operates from a different paradigm entirely. The old paradigm said my worth comes from being needed. The new paradigm says my worth is inherent. The old paradigm said love means sacrifice. The new paradigm says love means seeing clearly and choosing freely. The old paradigm said I must help everyone. The new paradigm says I must help myself first. This shift in operating system changes everything. You're no longer seeking approval through self-sacrifice. You're no longer performing goodness to earn love. You're no longer convinced that your needs are less important than everyone else's. You've stepped into the truth that you matter too, that your well-being is not optional, that your peace is sacred. People who are still operating from the old paradigm will find you threatening. They'll say you've become arrogant, selfish, cold. What they're really saying is, you've stopped being controllable. I can't manipulate you anymore. You won't let me use you. And that makes me uncomfortable. But the people who are also doing their own growth work, they'll recognize what's happening. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll appreciate that you show up as a whole person, not just a function. They'll value the authenticity over the performance. And here's what you discover in sovereignty: you can't be manipulated because you don't need what manipulation offers. You don't need their approval. You don't need their version of love. You don't need to be validated by people who can't see you clearly. You found validation within yourself, and that makes you unshakable. This doesn't mean you're perfect or that you've transcended all human needs. It means you're no longer controlled by the need to be needed. You're no longer driven by fear of abandonment. You're no longer convinced that if you stop serving everyone, you'll lose everything. You've tested that fear and discovered it was a lie. The people who left when you stopped over-functioning, they were never truly there for you. And the space they left behind, it's being filled with people who actually want to know you, not just use you. Now we arrive at the quality that makes people most uncomfortable: your peace. Not your anger, not your boundaries, but your absolute calm in the face of manipulation. Your groundedness when others are trying to destabilize you. Your quiet refusal to engage with chaos. This peace is dangerous because it can't be controlled. People can't press your buttons anymore. They can't guilt you into compliance. They can't manufacture crisis to pull you back into old patterns. You've become still at your center, and that stillness reflects everything happening around you with perfect clarity. A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. Jung wrote that about himself, and it applies to your journey. You've been through the fire. You've descended into your own underworld and integrated what you found there. You've faced your shadow, reclaimed your anger, rebuilt your boundaries, and emerged whole. And that wholeness gives you a presence that others find both magnetic and unsettling. They're drawn to it because everyone craves the peace you found. But they're unsettled by it because your peace reminds them of their own chaos. Your clarity reflects their confusion. Your boundaries highlight their violations. You've become a mirror. Not everyone wants to see what they see in that mirror. In the modern context, this power shows up in specific ways. You're no longer immediately available. You don't respond to messages instantly. You take your time. You consider whether you want to engage before you engage. Your attention has become scarce, and scarcity creates value. You're emotionally independent. You don't need constant connection or reassurance. You're comfortable with silence, with space, with your own company. This independence threatens people who are used to your dependency, who counted on your need for them to keep you tethered. You have inner spaciousness. You're not cramming your schedule with obligations anymore. You've created room to breathe and room to feel, room to exist, without constant productivity or service. This spaciousness allows you to respond rather than react, to choose rather than comply. You can't be emotionally extorted. The old tactics don't work. They can't threaten to withdraw love because you're no longer afraid of that threat. They can't make you feel guilty because you've released the false guilt you carried for years. They can't appeal to your sense of duty because you've redefined what you actually owe people. This evolution is what makes you dangerous in the best possible way. You're dangerous to dysfunction, to manipulation, to systems built on inequality. Your mere existence challenges those systems. You're not actively fighting anyone. You're simply refusing to participate in dynamics that require your self-betrayal. The people who experience this refusal don't understand it at first. They're used to empaths who fight, who defend themselves, who engage with the accusations. But you're not doing that anymore. You're simply standing in your truth, calmly, quietly, without explanation or justification. This calm is more powerful than any argument. It says, I know who I am, and your perception of me doesn't change that. I'm no longer trying to convince you to see me clearly. I'm no longer performing for your approval. I'm simply here in my integrity, and that's enough. People don't know what to do with this. They escalate, trying to provoke the old reactions. When that doesn't work, they often retreat or disappear, and you let them go. Because you've learned that anyone who can't respect your peace doesn't deserve access to your life. This is the quiet power, not domination, but presence. Not force, but clarity. Not aggression, but absolute boundary. You've become what Jung would call individuated, a person who is separated from the collective programming and found their own center. And from that center, you can see everything with new eyes. You can see the manipulation before it takes hold. You can see the patterns before they repeat. You can see who's real and who's performing. This sight is a gift hard-won through all the work you've done. Here's the final truth that completes this transformation. You haven't lost your capacity to love. You've purified it. You've removed all the fear, obligation, and guilt that was masquerading as love. What remains is something more real than anything you've experienced before. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Jung understood that wholeness requires accepting all of it, the parts we're proud of and the parts we've hidden. For the Carl Jung empath, this acceptance is revolutionary. You're accepting that you have limits, that you need reciprocity, that you deserve care too, that saying no doesn't make you bad. This acceptance transforms how you love. You're no longer rescuing because you understand that rescuing people from their own consequences prevents their growth. You're no longer merging because you know that enmeshment isn't intimacy. You're no longer destroying yourself to prove your devotion because you've realized that real love doesn't require self-destruction. The new love looks different. It's boundaried, it's selective, it's conscious. You love people as they are not as you wish they would be. You offer support without taking responsibility for outcomes that aren't yours to control. You hold space without losing yourself in that space. You've discovered that you can care deeply about someone and still choose not to have them in your life if the relationship requires your diminishment. You can wish someone well from a distance. You can send love without sending energy. You can hope for their healing without making their healing your mission. This is the love that comes from wholeness rather than woundedness. And it's sustainable. It doesn't deplete you. It doesn't require you to betray yourself. It flows from fullness rather than from lack. The relationships that remain after your transformation are fundamentally different. They're based on mutual respect, not just mutual need. They involve two people who are each responsible for their own emotional well-being, coming together to share rather than to take. They have space for both people's needs, both people's growth, both people's truth. These are soul-level connections, not surface performances, and they're rare. You might have fewer relationships now, but the ones you have are real. They're nourishing. They're reciprocal. They don't require you to dim your light or hide your power or pretend to be less than you are. You've also developed new standards. You notice red flags immediately. You don't make excuses for behavior that violates your boundaries. You don't give endless chances to people who show you through their actions that they're not capable of meeting you where you are. You trust your intuition when it whispers that something's off. This discernment isn't cynicism. It's wisdom. You've earned it through experience. You know what exploitation looks like now. You know what genuine care feels like. And you're no longer willing to confuse the two. The future that's opening before you is filled with possibility. You're building a life organized around your values rather than other people's expectations. You're creating relationships that honor your wholeness. You're pursuing dreams you had to suppress when you were busy meeting everyone else's needs. And here's the final revelation about why you've become dangerous. You're no longer controlled by the need to be needed. That need, that compulsion, that identity built on being essential to others, it's gone. You've discovered that you're complete on your own. Connection is something you choose, not something you need in order to exist. This completeness makes you formidable. You can walk away from anything, from anyone, from any situation that doesn't align with your highest good. You have no hostages to fortune. You're not trapped by guilt or obligation or fear. You're free. And that freedom changes everything. It changes how you move through the world. It changes what you'll tolerate. It changes who you attract. You're not drawing in people who need fixing anymore. You're drawing in people who are doing their own work, people who want connection rather than completion, people who can meet you in your wholeness. This is not the end of your empathic journey. It's the beginning of the real one. You've moved from unconscious absorption to conscious witnessing, from compulsive helping to discerning support, from self-abandonment to self-honor, from fragmentation to integration. You've become what you were always meant to be, a whole human being who happens to have extraordinary sensitivity, using that sensitivity, wisely protecting it, fiercely, offering it selectively to people and purposes worthy of it. You haven't lost your light. You've learned to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. And in protecting your flame, You've become a beacon, showing other empaths that there's another way to exist in this world. You're dangerous now, because you're no longer a victim. You're no longer controllable. You're no longer available for exploitation. You're sovereign, integrated whole. And that wholeness is the most transformative force in human psychology. This is who you are now. This is what you've earned through descent and integration. This is the power that was always yours, waiting for you to claim it. If this journey resonates with your own, share this message with another empath who needs to hear it. Comment below about what part of this transformation you're experiencing. And remember, your awakening isn't just personal. It's part of a larger shift in collective consciousness. Every empath who stops participating in their own diminishment helps heal the world. Your transformation matters. You matter, and you always did.